The first night I blamed batteries and bad reception. Little practical things that marriage teaches you to accept without drama. My phone died at the client's place, she said the next morning, voice airy, as if the world had room for a few dead devices. I believe her because habit is a soft, convincing voice. The second night the silence stayed on longer, a cavern of unanswered pings and the small, electric panic that lives in unread messages. I told myself to be reasonable, then went to bed with the television low and the house full of ordinary noises that suddenly felt like cover. By midnight, curiosity had climbed inside me like an animal that needed to know where it would sleep. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. I texted. No typing bubbles, no little green dots. Nothing. It was as if the phone itself had been swallowed. People imagine confrontation as a clean line. One accusation, one confession, catharsis. Life prefers margins, hesitations, the murky middle. I decided to follow the trace that modern life leaves, digital crumbs. Her last scene was gone, the typing bubble dark. But phones are not perfect conspirators. Every device keeps a small, unintentional map of its movements. I opened the old tracking app we use for shared calendars and foggy plans, the sort of app couples use because it feels responsible. For months it had been a map of grocery runs and commute detours, little benign strokes that made up a life. Tonight it's blue to pulse in a place it had never pulsed before, an address 2 neighborhoods over, a building I associated with late-night cafes and a laundromat, not romantic discretion, that sat like a verdict. I told myself I would be calm. I told myself I would speak with facts, not fury. But when you follow a dot through streets, you learn that maps are not neutral. They hum with intent. The closer I drove, the more my chest tightened with each red light, a metronome to my rising dread. When I parked a block away and stepped out, the air smelled like wet asphalt and exhaust, small, indifferent sense that made me feel absurdly alive. I kept my distance, hands shoved in pockets as if I were a passerby, and watched a building whose upper floors held little consequence for anyone but the people inside. She came out of his place like a woman moving between rehearsed scenes, hair tucked, a coat buttoned, a composure that had the polished shine of someone who has practiced exit strategies. He stood in the doorway, the kind of man who smiles as if everything is owed to him. Their voices were soft when they spoke, as if careful not to wake the street. He put an arm around her back, a touch that read like familiarity. She reached for her phone, and, for the first time in 2 nights, bubbles flickered like someone typing with slow, deliberate gestures. Her screen lit up a small, private lighthouse in the dark. He opened the car door for her as if it were an act of civility. I watched, and the world narrowed to the crisp edge of betrayal. I followed them at a distance that felt like cowardice dressed as strategy. They stopped at a cheap diner that had neon, flame-lit signage and a jukebox that played songs meant to soften the night. Through the window, I saw them laugh, lean, make small conspiratorial faces at each other. I drove around the block until my hands ached from gripping the wheel. The GPS had done its part. Curiosity had finished the job. But I wanted more than presence. I wanted proof. Not for the thrill of it, but because proof makes choices possible. Without it, you stand on a precipice and feel the wind, not the ground. When they left the diner, they did not return to his car. They walked into an alley I'd passed 1,000 times without noticing. It was a narrow cut between a shuttered shop and a stack of pallets. The kind of place that offers shadows for small, unremarkable crimes. I followed on foot, silent until my sneakers were just a human heartbeat behind them. He held her close and kissed her as if rehearsing courage. She kissed him back, and the world shifted so quietly that I felt the shift in my ribs like a chair pulled from under me. I should have confronted them. I should have screamed and thrown things and demanded a confession. Instead, I did something colder. I went home, not because I've been cowed, but because the most devastating power sometimes lies in the smallest, most administrative of retaliations. Revenge in melodramas is noise. Revenge in real life is architecture, slow, precise, and built to last. I drove home with the details tucked like blueprints in my head. Times, places, the make of his coat, the pattern on the scarf she used to tuck behind her ear. I called my bank and changed the password to our joint account, a practical cruelty that would make stolen dinners harder to pay for. I messaged a friend of hers. the one she'd always assumed would never tell me anything, and arranged for a plausible, compassionate lie that would cover where she said she'd been. I did the dry, calculating things that feel like betrayal because they touched the life she'd been secretly living and unmake it in small, necessary ways. Then I went back to his building, not to scream, but to leave a photograph. I took a picture with my old phone. No angles, no glamour. 2 images. One of them kissing in the alley. The other the GPS timestamp and location. I printed them at the kiosk in a 24-hour shop, black and white, like an evidence file. I placed them in a neat envelope and walked up to his door. I slid the envelope under it like a delivery, a silent postal verdict. No flourish, no accusations. Only a photograph of location, a fact dressing paper. He found the envelope the next morning. I watched from across the street as he opened it and read what he could not unsee. He looked up and down the street, a man realizing he'd been seen. His eyes darted as if trying to find a camera that had taken his picture. He called her. She didn't answer. She texted 2 words, "Are you okay?" And then nothing. I waited, not for drama, but to measure consequence.